Most people do not end their day when they think they do. Work may finish, dinner may be over, the lights may be lower, but the body often does not get the message. It keeps going. The mind stays busy. The nervous system stays slightly alert. And by the time you finally get into bed, you are tired but not settled. That is where stress hormones become part of the story. Now, cortisol is not the villain people sometimes make it out to be. In the right rhythm, it is useful. It helps you wake up, focus, respond, and get through the day. The real problem is not cortisol itself. The problem is when the body struggles to switch gears. When the evening still feels like stimulation, urgency, and unfinished business, the system behaves as if it is still on duty. That is why so many people lie in bed feeling oddly awake, not energized, just switched on. And what most people do after 9 p.m. often makes that worse. They keep checking their phone. They eat while watching something fast and noisy. They answer one more message. They scroll for a few minutes that become 40. They tell themselves they are relaxing, but their attention is still being pulled in 6 directions at once. It looks like rest, but it does not feel like safety to the body. A more useful approach is to think the way many Japanese-inspired habit systems do, not in terms of willpower, but in terms of sequence. Not, how do I force myself to be calm, but what kind of evening makes calm more likely? That is a much better question. Because discipline at night should not feel aggressive. It should feel like design. A few small actions, in the same order, at the same time, quietly repeated until the body starts trusting the pattern. That is the spirit of Kaizen. Small improvements, low resistance, strong effect over time. So tonight, we are looking at 5 Japanese-inspired habits that can help calm stress hormones after 9 p.m. Not miracle hacks, not wellness theater, just practical shifts that reduce stimulation, lower friction, and tell your system very clearly that the demanding part of the day is over. The first habit is to create a visible closing ritual. One reason the brain stays alert at night is that it dislikes open loops. Unfinished tasks keep a little part of your attention active. The email you still need to answer, the washing up you meant to do, the decision you have not made yet. Even if you are no longer working, your mind keeps scanning for what is unresolved. Most people carry all of that straight into the evening. A better option is to give the day a deliberate ending. Very simple. Write down what is finished. Write down the first task for tomorrow. Put away the tools of the day. Close the laptop. Clear one small surface. Turn off the brighter light. That sequence does something important. It gives the brain evidence that nothing else needs to be solved tonight. And evidence matters more than intention. When the body sees closure, the nervous system can begin to lower its guard. Ambiguity shrinks. Decision fatigue eases. Tomorrow stops leaking into bedtime. You do not need a perfect ritual. You need a repeatable one. That is habit 1. Habit 2 is reducing stimulation, especially digital stimulation, after 9 p.m. This sounds obvious, but people often underestimate how much modern evening entertainment keeps the brain in a reward-seeking state. Scrolling, jumping between apps, constant novelty, short-form videos, messages, background noise, late-night news, it all trains attention to stay alert for the next thing. and the brain loves the next thing. That is dopamine at work. Not bad in itself, just very unhelpful when you are trying to wind down. The issue is not that screens are morally wrong. The issue is that they keep your attention externally hooked. And when attention is still being pulled outward, the body struggles to enter a state of recovery. So, after 9 p.m., think in terms of narrower input. One channel, not 5. A physical book instead of phone, plus television, plus messages. Quiet music instead of random clips. One soft lamp instead of a brightly lit room. This is not about making the evening boring. It is about reducing unnecessary intensity. That distinction matters. In many Japanese-inspired living spaces, there is an appreciation for simplicity that supports calm, not emptiness for its own sake, not aesthetic performance, just an environment with less visual and mental clutter. At night, that becomes especially powerful. A room with softer light, clearer surfaces, and fewer active devices asks less from the nervous system. And that is exactly what you want after 9 p.m. A useful, practical step here is to create a low-information zone for the final hour of the night. Put the phone farther away. Dim the main light. Keep only one gentle activity available. Make the room feel quieter than the rest of the day. That is habit 2. Habit 3 is warm water timing. This could be a warm shower, a bath, or even washing your face and hands in warm water as part of a short night sequence. What matters is the signal. Warm water helps shift state. It marks a boundary between public effort and private recovery. There is a practical physiological reason for this as well. A warm shower before bed can support the body's wind-down process by helping it move towards the temperature changes associated with sleepiness afterwards. But just as important is the behavioral effect. It becomes an anchor habit. Anchor habits are useful because they reduce negotiation. You do not ask yourself, do I feel ready to rest? You start the sequence, and the sequence begins doing the work. That is what many people misunderstand about discipline. They imagine disciplined people are constantly overriding themselves. Often they are not. They have simply built routines that remove debate before fatigue takes over. A 10-minute warm shower, fresh clothes, soft light afterwards. No going back to emails once it is done. Protect the sequence. That is habit 3. Habit 4 is reflective release. A lot of nighttime tension is not task tension. It is emotional residue, a conversation that left a bad taste, quiet frustration, small embarrassment, mental comparison, disappointment you did not quite process because the day kept moving. Those things do not always feel dramatic, but the body still carries them. And when they remain vague, they often keep the system subtly braced. That is why a short reflective practice can calm the evening more effectively than passive distraction. Not pages and pages of journaling. Not analyzing your childhood at 10:15. Just a few lines that create clarity. What stayed with me today? What can wait until tomorrow? What would help tonight feel lighter? Simple questions. Clean edges. Psychologically, this works because naming an internal state often reduces its intensity. Once the feeling is given language, the brain is not working quite so hard to keep it active in the background. In plain English, what is named becomes easier to settle. A small notebook by the bed is enough. 3 lines only. Keep it brief on purpose. The goal is release, not rumination. That is habit 4. Habit 5 is preparing the first 10 minutes of tomorrow before the night ends. This may seem unrelated to stress hormones, but it is deeply connected. One reason people stay mentally active at night is anticipatory stress. Tomorrow feels messy, so the brain keeps rehearsing it. What am I wearing? What do I need first? What have I forgotten? What do I have to deal with in the morning? Uncertainty keeps the system alert. So, reduce uncertainty before bed. Lay out tomorrow's clothes. Put water where you will see it. Decide your first action in the morning, not the whole day, just the first move. Shoes by the bed, notebook on the table, tea ready in the kitchen. One small decision made in advance. That matters because the brain relaxes when the next step is obvious. This is where Japanese-inspired habit design is especially useful. It respects the power of small preparation. A modest action now can prevent a surprising amount of friction later. And less friction at the start of the day often means less stress carried into the next night. So, those are the 5 habits. A visible closing ritual, reduced stimulation after 9 p.m., warm water as a transition, reflective release, preparing the first part of tomorrow. None of them are dramatic. That is why they work. They are small enough to repeat, quiet enough to keep, simple enough to trust. And over time, they change more than just the night. They change your relationship with discipline itself. You stop thinking of discipline as something sharp and punishing. You begin to see it as a form of care, structure that supports you, rhythms that keep the body from being pulled in every direction at once. That is a much more sustainable kind of strength because real consistency is rarely built through intensity. It is built through cues, order, and repetition. Through evenings that do not ask you to be heroic. They simply make the next right action easier. So, if your nights have been feeling noisy, restless, or mentally crowded, do not overhaul everything at once. Pick one habit, just one. Put your phone farther away. Take a warm shower at the same time. Write 3 lines in a notebook. Prepare tomorrow's clothes. Dim the room earlier. Start there. The aim is not to become a different person overnight. The aim is to make the evening feel slightly safer to your nervous system, slightly more finished, slightly less demanding. And those slight changes add up. That is the quiet power of this approach. Small actions do not look impressive in the moment, but repeated nightly, they begin to reshape how the body expects the evening to unfold. The mind stops scanning as much. The room asks less of you. Sleep arrives with less resistance. Morning starts with less drag. That is not magic. It is pattern. And once the body recognizes the pattern, stress hormones do not need to stay elevated so late into the night. The system learns there is no more performance required, no more urgency, no more input to chase, just closure, simplicity, rest. So, after 9 p.m., do not ask how much more you can force out of yourself. Ask something gentler and far more useful. What would make the rest of this day easier to leave behind? Answer that with one small habit, then repeat it tomorrow night. That is how calm becomes more natural. That is how discipline becomes kinder. And that is how the body slowly learns how to switch off again.